Hi friends, welcome. Here we discuss real stories told by real people. Today we have a story about a man whose wife decided it was time for her to make up for lost time to start having fun on her own, without her husband. Let's see what happens. My name is Jonathan Wilson. I am 35 years old. I work as an analyst for a large company in San Francisco. I am of medium height, with dark hair and blue eyes. My friends say that I always look serious and collected. My wife, Emily Wilson, is 5 years younger than me. She is 30 and works as a photographer. Emily is slender, with long brown hair and green eyes. She was always bright and cheerful. Her smile could light up any room. We live in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment, for which I pay in full. I always thought it was fair, because I earn more. Emily could spend her money on her hobbies and our trips together. We've always trusted each other. Both have experienced infidelities in the past and have decided that honesty and openness will be the foundation of our relationship. One evening, we were sitting on the couch discussing plans for the future. "Jonathan, I want to tell you something," Emily began, her voice a little worried. "What's wrong, Emily?" I asked, putting down the book. "I bought travel tickets," she said, trying not to make eye contact with me. "For a trip?" I asked in surprise. "Where are we going?" "Not us," she replied softly. I'm going alone." I frowned. It was unexpected. "Why alone?" "To South America," she said. "I've been dreaming about this for a long time. I want to find myself." "Find myself?" I asked. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Emily sighed. "I knew you'd be against it. Or at least you don't want me to go alone." I felt a growing unease inside me. But why alone? Why not together? We've always traveled together. She looked at me, determination flashing in her eyes. "John, I need this. I need time for myself, to sort out your thoughts and feelings." I paused, considering her words. "When are you going to leave?" "On Friday," she replied. "I've already planned everything. I bought the tickets a few months ago." This news was like a bolt from the blue. I didn't know what to say. Emily had always been self-reliant and independent, but it seemed too sudden. We sat in silence for several minutes, each immersed in his own thoughts. "Emily," I finally said, "are you sure this is what you need?" She nodded. "Yes, John. Need this trip." I sighed. "Good. But you know you can always count on me. I'll be waiting for you here." She smiled, but there was a shadow of doubt in her eyes. "Thank you, John. I appreciate it." We hugged, but I felt that something had changed. Emily was determined, and I knew that I would have to make a decision, no matter how difficult it was for me. The next day was tense. We didn't talk much. Thoughts of Emily's upcoming trip haunted me. In the evening, I couldn't stand it and started a conversation. "Emily, we need to talk," I said as we sat at dinner. "About what, John?" she asked, although it was clear from her look that she knew the answer. "About your journey," I replied. "Why don't you want me to come with you?" Emily put down her fork and looked me straight in the eye. "John, I already told you. I need this time for myself." "But we always went together," I insisted. "Why should it be different now?" She sighed. "Because I want to sort out my thoughts. I feel like I'm losing myself. I need this journey to understand who I am and what I want." "But I'm also a part of your life," I objected. "Why can't you find yourself when I'm around?" Emily shook her head. "It's not that simple. I love you, John, but I need to be alone. It's important to me." My anxiety turned into annoyance. "You understand what it looks like. Suddenly leave without saying a word to me." "I knew you would mind," she replied calmly. "You would never understand." "Try to understand me," I said. Emily was silent for a moment, then said softly, "I feel strangled. We've always been together all these years. I've never had the opportunity to be alone, to learn what it means to be alone. I looked at her in disbelief. Do you feel strangled? I never thought you'd feel that way. She shook her head. It's not your fault. It just happened that way. But I can't do this anymore. I felt anger boiling up inside me. If you want to be alone, then be. But not here. This is my home, and I'm not going to share it with a man who doesn't appreciate me. Emily stood up. Do you really want me to leave? Yes, I replied, trying to remain calm. If you can't be with me, then leave. Find yourself, but without me and my house. She looked at me sadly. All right, John, I'll leave. We spent the rest of the evening in silence. Emily began to pack her things. I offered her money for a hotel, but she refused. At night she went to her parents. My phone started bursting with messages. Friends and acquaintances called to express their opinions. But I felt that I had made the right decision. We both knew there was no turning back. After Emily left, the apartment was empty. Several days passed in anxious anticipation. I tried to distract myself with work, but the thought of her sudden departure wouldn't let me go. I needed to know the truth. One evening, sitting in my office, I decided to look at her message history. We never hid our phones from each other. Emily always said we had no secrets. I took her tablet, which she had left, and started looking for it. Messages from a certain Michael appeared on the screen. At first, it was harmless conversations about photography and travel. But the further I read, the more personal their correspondence became. When will I see you again? Michael wrote. Soon, I can't wait anymore. Emily replied. My heart was beating faster and faster. I scrolled through the messages further and found that they were planning to meet in South America. This whole self-search turned out to be a cover. I couldn't take it anymore. That evening, I called Emily. Hi, John, she replied. Hi, Emily. We need to talk. She paused for a few seconds. About Michael, I said bluntly. She sighed. Yes, I did, I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. Why did you lie to me? I wasn't lying, Emily countered. I just didn't tell the whole truth. I needed this trip. Michael helps me figure myself out. Figure myself out? I felt anger boiling up. With whom? Couldn't you do that to me? John, that's not true, she said. Michael is just a friend. He understands me. The friend you were planning to meet behind my back? I asked. Emily, do you know what it looks like? She paused. I understand how it looks. But it's not what you think. Then explain, I said. Explain why you couldn't tell me the truth from the beginning. Emily sighed. Because I knew you'd be against it. Try me, I said, repeating the words from our previous conversation. She was silent for a few seconds, then said softly, I was scared. It's scary to lose you. But it was even scarier to continue living without knowing who I really am. I closed my eyes, feeling fatigue build up. Emily, I love you, but I can't live with a lie. She sighed. I understand. I'm sorry, John. We hung up the phone. I sat in silence, making sense of what I had heard. There was a long night ahead. The days passed slowly. I couldn't get thoughts of Michael out of my head. Emily continued to live with her parents, and we hardly talked. One evening, I met our mutual friend, Paul, and decided to share my suspicions with him. Paul, I need your help. I started when we were sitting at the bar. Of course, John. What happened? What is it? He asked, sipping his beer. Do you know anything about Michael? Did he talk to Emily? I asked, trying to sound calm. Paul frowned. Michael? Yes, I've heard of him. They met at one of her photo projects. Do you know how close they are? I asked. Not really. But I've heard that they often correspond, Paul replied. Why do you ask? Because I found their correspondence, I said quietly. They were planning to meet in South America. Paul raised his eyebrows in surprise. Are you sure? Absolutely. I've read their messages, I confirmed. Paul sighed. This is serious, John. Had you talked to Emily about this? She claims he's just a friend, I replied, but I'm not sure. Paul put his hand on my shoulder. Look, you need to figure this out. Maybe Emily was really just confused. I nodded. Thank you, Paul. I needed to hear it. The next day, I called Emily and offered to meet. We decided to meet at a cafe where we loved to spend time in the early years of our acquaintance. When I arrived, Emily was already sitting at the table. She looked tired, but she smiled when she saw me. Hi, John, she said. Hi, Emily, I replied, sitting down across from her. We ordered coffee, and I started a conversation. Emily, I can't get our last conversations out of my head. I began. Are you sure Michael is just a friend? She sighed. John, I've already told you. Michael understands me. He helps me sort myself out. But why couldn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? I asked, looking into her eyes. I was afraid, she replied softly. I was afraid you wouldn't understand. That we would lose each other. Emily, we need to be honest with each other, I said. I love you, but I can't live in constant doubt. She nodded, and tears appeared in her eyes. I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to deceive you. We sat in silence for a few minutes, enjoying the taste of coffee and the weight of the moment. Emily started talking again. I was really trying to figure myself out. Michael was just an excuse to get away from the usual, she said. But I understand that it was wrong. Emily, I want us to trust each other again. But it won't be easy, I said, feeling my heart clench with pain. I know, John, she replied. I'm ready to work on it. We exchanged glances full of hope and doubt. We had a long way to go, but this conversation was the first step. Several weeks have passed since our conversation in the cafe. Emily went back to her parents, and I stayed in our apartment. We decided to give each other time and space. I focused on my work and tried to find new hobbies. Running has become one of these hobbies. I started going out to the park every morning and running a few kilometers. It helped me to free my thoughts and focus on the future. One morning, I met my old friend, Ben, who was also keen on running. John, it's been a long time, Ben greeted, catching up with me on the path. Hi, Ben. Yes, it really has been a long time, I replied, smiling. We started running together, and it became our morning tradition. In the evenings, I began to meet more often with friends whom I had not seen for a long time. One day, we gathered in a bar to watch a football match. How are you, John? Paul asked as we sat down at a table. Slowly. I'm trying to find new hobbies, I replied, sipping my beer. That's right. Life does not stand still. Paul supported me. And how are things with Emily? We hardly communicate. We give each other time, I replied, but I think it's for the best. At that moment, Emily came into the bar. She looked different, more confident. She saw me and came over to our table. Hi, John, she said, smiling a little sheepishly. Can I talk to you? I nodded. Of course, Emily. Let's go outside. We went out onto the terrace of the bar and sat down at an empty table. Emily sighed and started talking. John, I've been thinking about us a lot, she said. I needed this time to sort myself out. And what did you understand? I asked, trying to be calm. That I really needed this trip. But I shouldn't have lied to you, she replied. I'm really sorry. I looked at her and felt that she was genuinely remorseful. I've been thinking about a lot too, Emily. We both needed that time. She nodded. I want to try to start over. If you're ready, of course. I thought for a moment, then nodded. Let's try it. But we will need to work on our relationship. Be honest and open with each other. Emily smiled. I'm ready. Thank you, John. We went back to the bar and joined our friends. That evening, I felt that our lives were beginning to change. We were both ready for a new chapter, so we have come to the end of this story. Please write your opinion in the comments. We will be interested to know it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss new, even more exciting stories. We wish you good luck.